What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Modern video. This time we're getting some gameplay of the deck we showed off on Monday, which is the Amulet Titan deck, which I have pulled up here, and this annoying little preview pane in the middle of it, hopefully to easier show off some of the cards and stuff that we're going to be talking about before we get into the match. And of course, before we get into any of that stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell if you haven't already. That'll notify you when videos get like this and others get posted. Of course, I do a lot of Modern Pioneer content. I tend to throw in some essay type videos, especially like the Why Nobody Plays Jason Mind Sculptor video, which like absolutely blew up over the weekend. So if you haven't seen that already, go ahead and check it out. Let me know what you think. A lot of people voice their opinions and stuff like that, and that's what I like to see. That's kind of what I want from a lot of videos like that, is just to kind of get some sort of discussion about them. So yeah, if any of that stuff interests you, subscribe, ring notification bell, all that fun stuff. So here we are with the Amulet Titan deck that we showed off on Monday. Of course, I still have my animations on. So this deck is all based on the card Amulet of Vigor, which says whenever a permanent enters the battlefield tapped under your control, you untap it. Having multiple of these amulets in play work very well together because each individual one will trigger if a permanent you control enters the battlefield tapped. So these what they call the Karoo lands, like Gruul Turret, Selesnya Sanctuary, and Simic Growth Chamber, all enter the battlefield tapped. They require you to return a land that you control to its owner's hand, but they tap for two of the respective colors. So like Simic Growth Chamber taps for green and blue, Gruul Turret green and red, so on. So with multiple amulets in play, with one amulet, essentially you get like an untapped land that adds 2 mana, and then for each one after that, you get an additional 2 mana before you have to return the land to its owner's hand. This all culminates into playing the card Primeval Titan, Prime Time, whatever you heard him called, 6 mana 6/6 with trample, and the most important text on it, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for up to 2 land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. This allows the deck to be built in a way that you can have a lot of like 2 card land combos that end up, forwarding your game plan and helping you in different situations. You have like these channel lands like Boseiju and Otawara, plus like a bounce land, which allows you to then return Otawara or Boseiju to your hand. If you just need some all-purpose like removal, you just need a tempo play with Otawara, or destroying an annoying artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land, from your opponent in Boseiju. The normal combo, in a way that people like go and get on the turns so they can just get extra Titan triggers, is Boros Garrison, which is like the Karoo land that we're talking about, but in the Boros colors. And then we have the card Slayer Stronghold, which conveniently for Boros colors, and tapping it, you can give target creature +2/+0 vigilance and haste. You can haste up the Titan again, attack, get the trigger, and kind of go from there. You can go and get, Urza Sagas, which will allow you in the future to get more amulets. It'll also make saga tokens, which will then eventually, just end up being super big and give your, very imposing board, for your opponent to try to deal with. You can get Simic Growth Chamber and Tolaria West, that you can end up just getting the Tolaria West and being able to transmute later for a Summoner's Pact that lets you search for a green creature, which can go either get another Titan, go get a Cultivator Colossus if you have a ton of lands in hand, or go and get Dryads, so we can go and start winning the game in a way with Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. Dryad will turn all your lands into mountains, and then, with a Valakut in play, every time you play a land, it's going to deal 3 damage to any target. And of course, alongside Titan, where you're going to get multiple lands in play a turn, you're going to be able to go grab like 2 Valakuts, deal 6 damage to your opponent, or I believe it's 12. Yeah, you get to deal 12 damage to your opponent by getting 2 Valakuts, and then every land after that is going to end up dealing 6 damage. You also have this copy of like Vesuva that you can go and copy any of your other lands. You can copy bounce lands, in a pinch if you need a bounce land, like if you had to leave one of them in play. You can copy things like Crumbling Vestige is like another way that you can make like colored mana, on top of also being able to synergize well with amulets if you have it in play. Of course, there was another one. There was a Bojuka Bog in this deck. At least the deck list that we went over in the deck tech had a Bojuka Bog, but I'll link this deck in the description down below if you want to play this. The sideboard, there's a Bajika Bog right there. There's just a ton of things and different utility lands you can do. Of course, this deck is playing the One Ring because the One Ring is very powerful, and this is also kind of like a mini payoff where maybe you don't necessarily have 6 mana, but you can make 4 mana. You can make it pretty reliably, and you just play the ring, and then eventually you will draw into a Titan or Summoner's Pact. You essentially have 8 in the deck, 10 if you count the Tolaria West. You just got to pay a little bit more mana to get that going. So yeah, this is the deck that we played. I got a very good match out of it, where I think we kind of get to show off what the deck is capable of, or at least on a base level what it's capable of. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump over to the match. All right, so here we are for game one. We are on the play in this match. We obviously at the time, I don't know who our opponent is. By looking at the title of this video, you will know. So this hand was pretty good, minus the fact that there is no land to actually keep in play to get this amulet down. But from here, if we had, one of these, like this Boros Garrison specifically was like, I don't know, any land that would stay in play, like Urza Saga probably being one of the best ones. We could go like turn 1 Amulet, and then we could have like Simic Growth Chamber, put our Boreal Grazer in play, put the Chamber back in play Azusa, and just kind of go off. Like if this land had a land that came into play untapped and didn't wasn't a bounce land, we would have a turn 2 ring, and that's pretty good against like a lot of decks in the format, especially. And of course, we're almost sure to find something. Expedition Map could find Tolaria West and stuff like that, but unfortunately, not that lucky. We end up keeping this hand, and I shipped the extra copy. I believe it was the ring to the bottom. So with this hand, we can keep one of these Karoo lands in play, pick up the Valakut, and like we kind of have this slow like Azusa in play. But I mean, like currently we have 5 mana. We're pretty close to casting Cultivator Colossus. We can end up casting the One Ring at some point to hopefully find something. So this hand's okay, definitely not busted, but it was the fact that it was a functional 6 that could actually do things. And of course we find out that we're playing against Burn, and we have an Amulet on top of our deck. Sweet. So that kind of means that we can do the same thing. I believe we keep the World Surf in play. And then from here, like we can just play the Simic Growth Chamber. We have 4 mana. We just cast the One Ring on our turn 2. So kind of lucked into it, but it is what it is. Our opponent attacks us. We find in our Boreal Grazer, and that makes life pretty interesting, especially since our opponent missed a land drop. So we get to play the Simic Growth Chamber, untap it, tap it for 2 mana, pick it up, return it to our hand. We can tap this Gruul Turf. We can play an Azusa. We can play the Growth Chamber. We can get our extra land drops in. We can play in our Boreal Grazer. I believe we end up being a mana short for the Cultivator Colossus, just by doing some quick math here. So like we end up having 1 mana floating with the Azusa in play, with like the 1 green. So we get 4 mana from the extra land drops. We end up going to so we have 2 left. Put this in play. Untap it. I don't believe that we end up using like necessarily all the extra land drops because we're not going to be able to cast this Cultivator Colossus. So we're just going to draw, play Valakut, say go. Just get this in play. This does give us some extra mana, like currently with how we are. We could have already cast Cultivator Colossus, so maybe it would have been smarter to hold that. Opponent attacks for some reason. They reveal Boros Garrison, which means like they just give us an extra land. Which is definitely a mistake because we had protection with the One Ring. So from here, we're going to have a very good Cultivator Colossus. We're going to end up drawing 2 cards with the ring. So currently we get to just draw 4 cards, and even if we like brick, we're kind of fine with hopefully finding like a Primeval Titan or something. Finding some way to do it. But we can draw another land, we draw a Grazer. So this will be like a way that we can get an extra land drop if we draw some more amulets. This could be like very good. Our Boreal Grazer definitely, I think, underrated as like a card in this deck in particular. So we play our Growth Chamber. We end up tapping our Valakut, Cultivator Colossus, and we just start throwing tons of things into play. Unfortunately, hit multiple Dryads, which is like fine. We've hit like a Tolaria West. We found an Amulet, and we found a Summoner's Pact. So like we do have, we definitely have enough action here. we could also like put Dryad in play and just start like hitting our opponent with Valakuts. We are going to take some damage from the Eidolon here, but you know it's going to be okay because like from here we should be able to win. Like I would say very unlikely our opponent kills us from here, even with like damage from the ring. It would have been nice to find another ring simply for the fact that we could have re-gotten protection. We tap our mana, bounce out Aurora if we need to. From here, I believe we just have like a way to like cobble together like some kind of kill. So like we have an Amulet. We're going to play a Dryad, or so we're going to be able to Summoner's Pact, go get a Titan, and then we're going to be able to play a Dryad, play a Titan, and just absolutely decimate our opponent's board. I believe here we end up going and getting the other Valaka and a Vesuva to just maximize the amount of damage. Something important to note, like what just happened there. So you can't get Vesuva and a Valakut and then have Vesuva copy Valakut unless there's already one in play. So if I had 0 Valakuts in play and I went and searched up one of them and a Vesuva, Vesuva would have to copy one of these other lands. It wouldn't actually be able to copy the Valakut. So that's why here I was able to actually copy it here because I already had one in play. Of course, that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 damage. You know, we just already had the win, you know, from here. And our opponent taking their time, like I guess me also kind of like taking my time, but not on purpose. Just trying to like play around like any funny business or whatever, just making sure that we can kind of do our thing, but I don't think it really matters too much, honestly. So then we just 18 our opponent, like that, no problem. Of course, with the Dryad making these any basic land type, we also had, you know, an Arboreal Grazer. We would go to 4, but then like our opponent would take 9. So we had them dead from, you know, the full 20. So yeah, our opponent playing a looks like a traditional burn deck, Goblin Guide, Eidolon, Lava Spike, stuff like that. So we kind of have an idea what we're gonna go in and sideboard. So let's go ahead and jump over to game 2 and see how things went in the sideboarded games. So here we are for game 2 against Burn. I believe we end up keeping this hand. So what I like about this, we can just play the Beseiju and play out an Amulet, which will then allow us to like Arboreal Grazer. We have 4 mana here, so we just have a turn 2 ring in this hand straight up. Of course, we're not playing against something like Scam or whatnot. I think against Scam, we'd probably have to keep this hand anyway, just because it does things. It eventually does, you know, we have 5 mana here, like we could top deck at 6 land and play a Titan, you know, so like this hand is pretty good, I believe. Obviously, no disruption for our opponent, no smash or smithereens or what have you. We just have a turn 2 ring, and we just end up drawing a bunch of cards, so this is a keep. And our opponent doesn't do anything, passes the turn. We draw a Simic Growth Chamber, which is nice. We get to have we only really need 1, but just having a second one is pretty good, just in case you need to play out the other one. And like we outlined earlier, you know, here we have Growth Chamber in play. Growth Chamber being better than Growth Earth for the fact that it can transmute this Talaria West. So we get to untap, tap it, bounce it back to our hand. We get to play out this Grazer, which means that we get to put, you know, Growth Surf in play. You know, we probably could have done this instead, just to not actually reveal this Growth Chamber. And I actually decide to keep the Beseiju around. This being if our opponent decided to play like Eidolon or something like that, and we were just like ended up spinning our tires. It's not a way that we end up getting like absolutely just cheesed out of the game. In a position now where, you know, we have an Amulet in play, we have a ring in play, we have a blocker for any like 2-power creature. Of course, we have the protection for this turn, but you know, from this point on, like this Grazer is going to demand like either a burn spell or it's going to block a creature in combat and then eat another burn spell, which is going to be super good for us considering that we're going to be taking some damage from this ring. Whether that's correct or not to keep activating this, I don't know, but I can only assume it is, considering the fact that we just need some kind of action to eventually close out the game, because our closing speed is going to be way better than our opponents. They end up having to pay a full price Skewer the Critics to kill our Arboreal Grazer. While that was a 1-for-1 trade, that is super good for us. It's not super good as drawing another Beseiju, but we find an Urza Saga. We cannot play the Titan this turn. I believe even like next turn we can't. So, uh, and unfortunately for any of our other lands, like if we probably could have played this Growth Chamber out, but we wouldn't have another land to bounce. So just having this Urza Saga go, this could eventually lead to us just like making constructs. So that is something. We do have something going forward. Our opponent Skewer the Critics our face for 3 mana. That is so good for us. Like I don't know what they could possibly have in hand if they're flooding out, whatever. But the fact that they're just like having to pay full price for the Skewer the Critics is super good for us. We end up taking more damage from the ring, so we eventually we have to find something. So here we draw an Amulet. That's all she wrote because we're going to be able to play the Simic Growth Chamber, make 4 mana with it because of 2 amulets, tap this Growth Turf, get a Primeval Titan, and then we're just going to be able to haste up this Titan. There's also we have some other lines we can take too. I believe we end up just playing another Primeval Titan. We can just get a bunch of bounce lands, cast another Titan, go get our combo, and attack our opponent. So here we are, make 4 mana. Titan, nobody shocked. I believe we get 2 bounce lands from this, or we get a bounce land and a Michelson's Garden, which is a card I did not touch on in the deck tech, but you can pay X and tap it to have it become a copy of a target non-token artifact you control with mana value X. So this is like a way that we can untap this, we can make a colorless mana with it, untap it again because of the second amulet, and then we can make a third amulet. And we already have, the mana essentially, thanks to this Arboreal Grazer, to kind of just do that, where we can put it into play, make 6 mana off of another Simic Growth Chamber, and continue to go off as well. I believe also, kind of like a cute trick, we end up getting to haste up the Grazer as well. So while it is not lethal, our opponent is at 19, it does cut them off of playing this Fiery Islet. So we just keep doing our thing, end up untapping the land, tapping it, and so on. While this seems like it's really easy, honestly it's not. And even from here, we could have just Summoner's Pact for a Cultivator Colossus and done it that way, maybe eventually lucked into it. I opted for the safer route of just making sure that my opponent is going to lose the game. We're going to get a ton of triggers from these Titans, and they're going to need a lot of help. Kind of fine with going essentially to virtually 8 off of this ring for the fact that our opponent ended up playing full price for Skewer on their last turn. So unless they're really sandbagging and slow rolling it, I just highly doubt that we end up losing this game. So we attack, we get 2 more Titan triggers. We go and get Radiant Fountain and a bounce land, so we can just bounce this Radiant Fountain. We need to remember that we actually don't have to pay for a pact. This pact can end up going and getting a Dryad, which could have also been an option to go do, is to just start picking up Valakuts and probably winning the game that way. Again, I think in this situation doesn't necessarily matter because we're going to put our opponent to 1, cut them off of a land, and all 3 of their spells in their hand have to be 1 damage burn spells for them to actually win the game. So going up, gaining life, we're at 10, and even if they all are 1 damage burn spells, they can't actually use this Fiery Islet. So we just grab 2 Urza Sagas. For some reason, if they are able to just completely just end the game whatsoever, like I said, we have Radiant Fountains, we have Urza Sagas just to make a ton of constructs. We have this other one here as well. We're just going to be so set up for next turn, if there even is a next turn, which I doubt it. Because I would assume any normal human being would scoop to this if they just absolutely couldn't beat this. So we just end up discarding the lands, pass a turn. They play an Eidolon, and of course we have the Boseiju for this. They knew about it from the beginning. We just get this out of the way. Give our opponent some lands. We're at 10 life. There's, I don't think, really a combination of burn spells that could kill us from 10. So we just do our due diligence. We play a Dryad, and then, play this land. Our opponent's Skull cracks to stop us from gaining life, even though we already gained the life. We attack with the Titans, and that's it. We just end up getting Valakuts, shooting our opponent, just to basically make it even harder for them to actually, win the game. But just having to have multiple answers off of a land that they cannot cast anything off of, or they die. So that is a thorough beatdown of Burn. I don't know who's the good guy. in this scenario because they're both pretty evil. uh, I think it's like Magneto and like Doctor Doom fighting. Like I don't really know like who winning is the best course of action, but this was like a lot of fun because we did get to show off what the deck is capable of and some of the lines. And again, definitely not like the perfect playing. Even like kind of watching it back through again, there's definitely some things that could have been done better, but for the most part, pretty happy with how we played in this matchup. Of course, a lot easier when our opponent kind of stumbles the way they did, where they're having to cast 3 mana, 3 damage burn spells, like pretty much at like an honest rate compared to cards, back then. So with all that said, let's go ahead, jump back over the deck, and kind of wrap all this up and give my thoughts and opinions of Amulet Titan 1. So here we are with the wrap up of Amulet Titan. We just had a thorough beatdown of the burn deck. Even when they kind of got to do their thing, we were able to race them, especially being on the play. So what I learned, even playing from this, that this deck is continues to be, just crazy consistent. We had that last game, we had 3 amulets in play, and really like the fact that we get to untap, we had a fourth amulet put into play as well. Of course, like we could have pumped those rookie numbers up by just searching with different lands with the Titan, and we could have had a bunch of amulets in play, which probably would have been good for content. That would have definitely made a pretty good title for the video, but we sacrifice content for the correct line of just actually killing our opponent and not extending a game that was we were a 99% chance to win any further. Primeval Titan, printed in M11, still a very powerful creature, just bigger than most anything else in the format. Very powerful ability even by today's standards. The One Ring proving that it's still a very powerful card. Not that it really needed to prove that fact, but just nice to run into a deck that really couldn't punish us for playing the ring, and even in a way kind of like actively benefited them by just us taking extra damage, but proving that like the amount of cards that we end up drawing with this just didn't matter, even if we never found another copy to kind of loop rings and only take like 1 damage after drawing a bunch of cards rather than taking a bunch more. Arboreal Grazer, as you saw, like to very good effect in those matches where just having 1 mana to make an extra land drop, like making 1 mana to make 2 mana, and just be able to get up to like mana to cast the One Ring, or even up to like Primeval Titan and this Cultivator Colossus that's kind of shy and hanging out over here. Definitely pulls its weight, that's for sure. Arboreal Grazer is secretly one of the best creatures in this deck for how effective that it blocks. It needs at least like one good spell. If this eats an Unholy Heat, you're totally happy with it because that means that a Titan more than likely is not, which means that you're gonna get a lot of land triggers and you're just gonna get a lot of things going in general. Dryad, of course, proving that it belongs on the deck as just like a way to help kind of finish off games, where like you're attacking with one Titan, you end up getting some Valak cuts all the way down here, and then just, fireballing your opponent for huge amounts of damage. Overall, Titan is still Titan be tightening. It's still a very powerful deck. It's very good at what it does. It's very consistent in what it does. It is essentially like a fancy Tron deck, is kind of like a good way of putting it. Simply for the fact that instead of 1/2/7, you're going like 2/4/6, and just cutting your land drops and stuff. It's definitely a higher skill ceiling, I think, versus Tron, but infinitely more rewarding deck and kind of fun watching it be played and also being played as well, even if you know like nothing about it. Just like searching your library for like a ton of lands and like figuring out some of like the 2 card combos and stuff as you go is a lot of fun. And while this deck isn't necessarily for the faint of heart, to play in like a competitive sense, just for the fact that it is a very tough deck to play, it's definitely worth putting the reps in because definitely the time and effort you put into it will show as you play more matches and stuff with it. So that's gonna do it for me this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Let me know if you want to see more gameplay content. I have some Pioneer gameplay going up tomorrow, probably around the same time that this video is going up. So if you like that stuff, please consider subscribing, ring the notification bell, so you can see more of that stuff and see it when it goes live. And down in the description below, there is a link to the Discord server. Go ahead and follow that link as well. That's going to do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.